Hello everyone, this is part 26 of What If Naruto Was a One-of-a-Kind Genius, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Afternoon. Hokage office. Tsunade looked at the request in front of her for a moment and then stared back at Naruto. What is the story between you, the fire daimyo? The god I'm Hokage asked. Naruto appeared to think for a moment. The Fire Lord was a sly old geezer who attempted to use him for political gain. Of course that had failed because the Sandaime was there, but Naruto wouldn't have had any problem with it. Well, back then he had thought that the old man was someone powerful, but now he had come to discover that he was irrelevant when it came to shinobi matters. He may control the fire country, but when it came to shinobi matters, he had little power and influence. Konoha allowed him to influence it to some degree, but if a war was to break out, the cages wouldn't hesitate to cast them aside because they would be just a waste of resources, as they would be demanding needless protection that could have been better utilized in the efforts for victory. Cages were the core in the elemental nations. They were the 5 most powerful individuals, at least that was what Naruto thought. He already had met one in the name of Gaara. Speaking of which, he really hasn't even bothered the Sand siblings and really didn't appear to care much about what was happening in the Sand. Maybe he should make a visit soon. Naruto focused on Tsunade before responding. We attempted to use each other when the Sandaime was still alive. I don't dislike him, but I have lost all interest in him. Tsunade raised an eyebrow at hearing this. What? The Sandaime had thought if we stayed friends, it would reflect kindly on Konoha, and I thought it would earn me some favors. However, I have come to understand that he is nothing. Maybe amongst the feudal lords and with money, but when it comes to shinobi, money isn't the important thing that makes you strong. Naruto responded calmly. Why do you ask? Tsunade blinked. She was honestly surprised that he would tell her everything so simply, even though she wasn't demanding any answers. Was this his way of dealing with her in a fair way, or did he just think that it was something trivial so much that it didn't matter if she learned about it or not? The Slug Princess shook her head. There is a mission request and it names you specifically. He wants you to escort his wife back to the capital. I don't really have the time and patience to babysit that woman, Naruto said with slight distaste at the mission. You don't have a choice, Tsunade said in a hardened tone. You will escort her. You are due to leave tomorrow morning. Come in early and I will give further instructions. I should be done drafting my letter to the daimyo by then, the Godime said. You want to play that game as well? Naruto asked. Tsunade ignored the question. I'm curious, why did you want to earn favors from the fire daimyo? On the same subject, Naruto said, I will make a visit to Kirigakure. The journey and everything, it should take about at least a week. So, I will be away from the village for that period, and Sasuke as well. Why Kiri? Tsunade said. Why is that on the same subject? I don't see how those two connect. Naruto raised his index finger as he responded. Shinobi are despicable creatures who betray friends and family for petty reasons. A war can be started for a simple reason. The blonde Uzumaki paused. A shadow fell over his eyes for a split second as he responded. To be honest, I find most of the shinobi population repulsive, for the lack of a better word. I tolerate the impurity because there is no way around it. Even so, I learned that people can change. Well, that comes with being human. You can change your mind in the blink of an eye, for the good or for the worst. I'm always on my toes because this world isn't safe. It repulses me, yet I still fear it. I want to connect a few dots that will at least hold together to ensure that there is no war in the near future. He wasn't going to say anything more than that. That was the sweet noble dream that Tsunade needed to hear for now. Anything below the desk would be for him to know and for her to remain in the dark over. She didn't need to know everything. For a second I almost thought that you'd want to do for the good of the shinobi world, Tsunade said. But this is just for you or for your mother. I will not deny nor confirm that, but it does benefit both Konoha and the elemental nations, Naruto said with a wave of his hand, almost as if he was dismissing Tsunade's suspicions. I will talk to you tomorrow morning. Uchiha compound. Sasuke stared at Naruto for a long minute as the blonde Uzumaki walked into his house as if he owned the place. The blonde just strolled in here like this was his house, this was his home, but it was not. He may have been coming here since he was younger, but this was not the Uzumaki background that he micromanaged like a possessed demon, this was the house of Uchiha. Sasuke felt that he needed to establish that. I don't just walk into your house like that, Sasuke said. I'm sure you wouldn't be happy if I did so, the Uchiha said. Naruto looked at Sasuke with a raised brow. The teen was sitting with his mother. It wasn't often that he found the two together, but it was mother and son, it was to be expected. Still, looking at the woman was just trying to see if she agreed with what Sasuke was trying to suggest. The woman merely smiled, but Naruto got the feeling that she either didn't want to comment or she was amused by the statement from her son. You wouldn't just get into my house, Naruto said in a calm tone. He settled down beside the two Uchihas. The table was littered with papers. Obviously, they were working together. But I should not act as if I am the man of this house. It will not be happening again. Well, that is surprising, Mikoto said with her smile. You're in a good mood today. You can say that, Naruto responded calmly. He turned to Sasuke, I came to speak to you. It is important and I cannot leave without discussing it. Sasuke snorted at the word, discussing. Since when did the blonde Uzumaki discuss things with him? Naruto only informed him about completed things and what he was planning on doing. There was never a day he consulted with him before doing something. The consultation was done inside his head before he goes on to dish out the final product to his subjects. Naruto shook his head at Sasuke's expression. Should I disturb your work, or will you can't hear me out? The Uzumaki asked quietly. I'm listening, Sasuke said. They were going to speak right in front of Mikoto. This was the first time he was discussing things with Sasuke in front of his mother. He didn't even go into such things with his mother. He always left the disturbing details of his plans to his mind. Well, it wasn't that everything was disturbing and there was nothing outrageous he was going to say to the Uchiha. Naruto turned to Mikoto. He wondered if she had spoken with his mother already, but by the looks of things, it was apparent that she had yet to do that. Well, if it meant that he could avoid her for now and until he leaves the village, so be it. There were things he didn't want to talk about with her at the moment if he had a choice. Sai is already in the village and is busy setting up things for the agency. We will still keep that base I showed you, but most things will happen in this village. I have spoken with Tsunade about it and we are on the same page. Once everything is set, Sai will fill you up on everything and you can visit anytime you want something. Naruto said. The Hokage actually agreed to it? Sasuke asked, a little surprised. What did you have to pull through to get her to agree? Nothing, Naruto said with a shrug. You just need to have a way with words. You don't get everything through using a forceful tone or demands. You must be willing to communicate clearly with people, to get them to listen to you. If people cannot listen, you can't sell them anything. Spoken like a negotiator, Mikoto said. What more deals are you negotiating with the Godime? This and that, Naruto said vaguely. The reason I came here is because I want you to come with me to Kiri tomorrow. It might take at least a week, but it is important. If your timetable is free, you can come with. Sasuke looked thoughtful for a moment before nodding. You're making a move on the Mizukage, the Uchiha said. I could use some outside air. What time do we leave? Just be ready by early morning. I will let you know, Naruto said before standing up. Wait, Mikoto said to Naruto. What move are you making on the Mizukage? Nothing personal, Naruto said with a shake of his head. But I'm not afraid to make it personal if that is what it will take to get her to see the same thing as me. I don't approve of that, Mikoto said in a very firm tone. Naruto shrugged. My mother doesn't approve of many methods I use, the blonde said indifferently. You don't tell your mother the methods you use. Mikoto gave a flat response. Naruto stared at the woman for a long minute before shaking his head. That is true, but it doesn't mean she is ignorant of everything, the blonde said before walking away from the two before he could be dragged into an argument with Mikoto. What was that all about? Sasuke asked his mother. Since when do you question his methods? You have always known that Naruto is a manipulative fox and will use any method he deems effective to get what he wants. It didn't surprise Sasuke that the Uzumaki could plan something like this. This was Naruto after all. He didn't go by what was morally right or wrong, he went by what he wanted to do and how to achieve it. Perhaps this was by his dislike of humans. Well, the resentment was said to have been much worse before, at least according to his brother. These days the blonde seemed tolerant and was willing to work with people. But of course, he only got along with those people in his circle. Nothing, Mikoto said. What is Naruto setting up now? With regards to the Mizukage? Sasuke shrugged. I don't know the details, but it was about connecting some dots to make a connection. I won't be surprised if it is to be able to influence how this world operates soon. The young Uchiha paused before asking, what do you think we should do? See where this goes, Mikoto said. But don't play your hand too much. It's okay if you just play along. We don't have to do anything, for now at least. Our clan isn't in a great position. But we must not allow trouble to get to us. But I'm sure Naruto won't be doing anything disastrous because he has to think about his mother. Sasuke nodded. I think so too. What is the difference between Naruto now and then? Sasuke looked thoughtful for a few moments before responding. He has really changed. I guess it is for the better, but I am not the one to say. Later, Ichiraku Ramen. Mikoto settled next to Naruto at the ramen stand, and ordered herself a bowl of ramen. Why do you like this place so much? From what I know, this is the only place you eat food aside from home. Well, when you are alone. I have never heard anyone saying that they saw Naruto eating somewhere else aside from here. I don't like the other places, Naruto said calmly. Besides, this is the only place I have been able to eat in peace without having to worry about the food being poisoned. Ah, the bitter old days when being Uzumaki wasn't even the last thing anyone would want to be. But things have changed, haven't they? Naruto no longer had to face anything despicable at the hands of the villagers. He could live his own life the way he wants to without them being a hindrance to it. He could do anything without them saying he didn't deserve it because he was nothing more than just a container. The blonde didn't quite live like a container, did he? Even in his life as a shinobi, you'd never know he was a container unless you were told by someone who knew about it. He didn't even go around talking about the Bayu inside of him, and that wasn't because it was a sad subject. There was another reason. Mikoto just could not place her finger on it. Well, I can't blame you with what happened in the past, Mikoto said before going silent as her order was placed in front of her. She looked at the steaming ramen for a couple of moments before eyeing Naruto out the corner of her eyes. The blonde kept his gaze on his bowl. Why do I have to be the last person to know about your absence from Konoha? It was Naruto's turn to eye the woman. Why indeed? But did he really owe her that much that she be treated as a special case? She was demanding some preference, and he got the sense that it wasn't just because they were sleeping together. He has known all along that it wasn't just about the pleasure, there were hidden agendas and emotions that were included. It had appeared as lust at first, but over the past, he has learned that it was more than that. He was refusing to admit it, even though he has accepted the woman as a part of his life. Are we in a relationship? Naruto asked, in a bit of a curious tone. We are in one, but not one that I would like, Mikoto said. I understand that things will be difficult if those in our families find out about it, but I can't just let this go. You've become a big part of my life, and honestly, I'd say you're my secret man. Naruto didn't offer a response to this. Admittedly, this is nice, it has been a pleasant experience and has changed some aspects about me, but how long do you think it will last, Mikoto? That is something that I don't want to think about, the Uchiha responded calmly. But I have trusted you with my own body, I don't want that to be meaningless. I know this is going to be difficult, but I want to at least try. It was safe to say that his mother had yet to say anything to the woman about Yugao. It was better that way. There were still things that he needed to solve before making any decision. This wasn't just something that affected today or tomorrow, it would affect future days. Therefore, he had to be careful with what he decided. I didn't think that I would be thinking about something personal that didn't affect my mother, Naruto said. But I guess this is something that happens when you're growing up. I'd thought I'd done my part though, but it seems that there is still so much to learn about life, emotions, relationships, and the side of being human that makes us seek happiness, in ways that we can understand. You do admit that you want to be happy yourself, Mikoto said. I never said I didn't want to be happy, Naruto said with slight shake of his head. My mother's happiness has and will always be my priority. It is only that now I can see that it isn't just about her safety that matters. I am my mother's joy, that is something I am only starting to fully understand now. I've seen her burst with joy when I do normal things, when there are brief moments of happiness in my life. She has always told me that her desire is for me to be happy, to enjoy the riches of life. I accept that, but a part of me is always restless because of the kind of world we live in. Mikoto felt happy, only because Naruto was willing to say this kind of thing to her. He normally would not to her or to anyone. He closed his heart to everyone, but she was happy that he allowed her to catch glimpses of what was inside his heart. This world isn't the most beautiful place, but just because it is filled with hate, intents, and traitors, doesn't mean that you can't be happy. You can still be happy, because at the end of the day, that is a choice you make for yourself. Nobody can force it, you decide whether you want to be happy or not, and when you have made the decision, you make the effort. Mikoto placed the money for her ramen on the counter before standing up. You have to ask yourself, do you want to be happy? What will make you happy? How does that happiness affect those around you? If you want to talk more before you leave, come see me tonight. The following day, outskirts of Konoha. Isn't this going to cause a problem if it is discovered? Sasuke asked Naruto. The blonde had sent a clone to guard the wife of the feudal lord. He might not know much, but his mother had told him a few things about the daimyo and his importance. For Naruto to send a mere clone to guard his wife was just a blatant show of disrespect. What if something happens to her? It wasn't just going to affect the Leaf's relationship with its daimyo but Konoha's image as well. Naruto looked at Sasuke with a raised brow. He had expected Sasuke to ask him many things, but not this kind of a question. It was surprising really. Your mother is teaching you politics, the blonde stated as the two sped through the forest, hopping tree after tree in the journey towards Kiri. For my future roles, it will be important that I know the basics. Sasuke said. The Uchiha clan isn't dead, we are alive and well, maybe just young, but we will get there one day. When that happens, I need to be ready to handle things for my mother and the clan. Of course, that means dealing with other clan heads. Sasuke would not care much about village politics, he was most concerned about the future of his clan and its survival. Well, they had survived Itachi and now they just had to stay silent while they raised the young children. They would reclaim their rightful place as Konoha's strongest clan, but for now, it was all about taking care of the small issues that were fundamental for the clan's future in his hands. His mother wasn't going to stay clan head forever, she was going to leave the duties for him at a certain stage. It wasn't now. He wanted to handle a few things first and fight many battles before he could think about looking into the inner workings of the hidden leaf. Your mother is doing a rather good job, Naruto said. You're obviously learning something. That is good, I don't have to caution you when you make reckless decisions. He paused to really think about what he had just said. At least most of the time. What is that supposed to mean? Sasuke demanded with narrowed eyes. You will always be Sasuke and I will always be Naruto. There are parts of ourselves that we can never get rid of. Naruto explained lightly. I know when you hear something you don't like, there is a certain way you will respond, it might be measured now, but still the same thing. Sasuke looked at the trees ahead of him for a long minute, thinking. Once done, he went back to his earlier question. Why did you really send a clone to guard that woman? For bandits, she is a good target. Quote, that indifference in your tone makes me wonder, but I'm not the one to say. Sasuke said with a shake of his head. Wouldn't it be bad if something like that happens? Naturally, Naruto said. But nothing will happen. The clone is armed enough to handle bandits. It will be a different matter if it comes across shinobi, but we are not expecting something like that, so it should be fine. Aren't you the one who was always saying you should always expect the unexpected? This is the shinobi world, you can never really figure out what everyone is thinking. Sasuke responded calmly. Maybe it doesn't apply now because it isn't convenient to you. This must be the hypocrisy Itachi spoke about. The Uchiha said the last words to himself rather than to Naruto, but the blonde heard him. Naruto chose to ignore the last remark from Sasuke. There is nothing to worry about, and in case something unexpected happens, there is a backup plan to ensure that things proceed smoothly, the blonde said. But this just means you have no interest in using the feudal lord. He may not have much say in the workings for shinobi, but he is still the lord of the fire country, and with that comes influence over other feudal lords. Sasuke said. Still, knowing you, there might still be plans. I have no such plans. If I wanted more, I could have had Sai pay some bandits to try something, and then my clone would perform some heroics in ensuring the daimyo's wife's safety. Surely, the woman would have spoken my name in glowing terms, but I no longer have any interest in him. Sasuke's eyes turned towards the blonde for a second before looking at the trees ahead. You'd make her go through the ordeal just for that. Naruto shrugged. It would be a valuable experience for her, and I would end up eliminating vile insects that pollute this world, the blonde said indifferently. Let us increase our pace. We must hurry to get something to take us through the sea. I want to be in Kiri by tomorrow. We can go slow along the sea. I don't have a problem with it. It will be some time to relax and maybe some practice runs along the heavy currents. What would you need to practice along the sea? Chakra control, elemental manipulation, and you can train your senses. Naruto gave off a list. But you don't use Suten Jutsu. Sasuke pointed out, thinking that within the sea, one would think of utilizing the vast amount of water for Suten Jutsus. He knew Naruto was a wind manipulator, but he also used both fire and lightning to some extent. Wind was his greatest, even though he rarely showed off his skills with it. When at his lethal best, Naruto would either be using his sword and wind. The blonde often used his head and muscles though. It was something else that he didn't want to impose himself as a very powerful shinobi, even though he was. He was probably the only one who knew the extent of Naruto's abilities, and maybe Jiraiya to some level. Even though he thought the blonde had reached another wall in his growth, he could never confidently say that he could defeat Naruto in a serious battle. Maybe later, once he has awakened the powers of the Mangekyo Sharingan, or when he is using the Eternal Mangekyo. That was something that he only learned from Naruto. Despite not being Uchiha, the blonde was very knowledgeable about the powers of the Sharingan. He knew the tricks. The wind flows different in the sea, Naruto said, but that was the only thing he said. He didn't go any further than that. He increased his pace, causing Sasuke to follow him. The following day, Kirigakure, Sasuke flashed in front of Naruto, just above the ground. His right foot flashed through the air as it traveled towards the blonde's temple. The Uzumaki saw the attack coming and didn't attempt to block it. He ducked under the kick. Sasuke's Sharingan reacted swiftly to the movement, and the Uchiha summoned a lightning blade in the blink of an eye. Sasuke didn't disperse his jutsu as he landed down. He tracked Naruto's form a couple of feet away from him. The Uzumaki was standing atop of a small rock. Your use of the Sharingan's ability to predict movements is outstanding. A slower person will not have a chance against you if you don't allow your arrogance to get the best of you. Naruto said calmly, hands folded over his chest. Your reflexes keep getting better and better. Sasuke said. The Uchiha suddenly disappeared in a burst of electricity. In the blink of an eye, he appeared right above Naruto, birds chirping in the palm of his right hand. The Uchiha flashed his jutsu straight towards Naruto, but once again, Naruto managed to get out of the way. This time around, he disappeared along a silent breeze. Sasuke's jutsu exploded after colliding with the rock Naruto had been standing on. The explosion tore through the rock, shattering it into pieces. Sasuke added another jutsu whilst the rock was shattering. He poured out lightning chakra into the ground, producing multiple electric bolts around the place Naruto was going to land. A clone appeared in a puff of smoke beside Naruto and got hold of the original before twisting him once in midair. It then hurled him straight towards Sasuke like a bullet. Odama Rasengan, Naruto said as the large ball of chakra formed around the palm of his right hand. Sasuke's Mangekyo came to life as Naruto neared. The blonde appeared as if he was going to the jutsu against Sasuke's part Susanoo, but he suddenly disappeared in a puff of smoke. He appeared right behind the Uchiha, holding his blade in his right hand. The tip of the blade touched Sasuke's ribcage Susanoo from the back. Extending blade, Naruto said before a wind blade extended from his sword, in blinding speed, invisible to the eye. Sasuke only managed to avoid the jutsu through the Sharingan as it had pierced through his Susanoo. A second later, Sasuke could clearly see the light blue blade extending through his Susanoo from the back to the front. The Uchiha twisted around quickly along with his Susanoo as its size increased. A heavy hand through the air before crashing into the ground in a loud boom. Its target had already disappeared. Can that jutsu really pierce through anything? Sasuke asked. It wasn't the first time Naruto was piercing through his Susanoo with the same jutsu, and every time it was always after contact with it. He has never really used it without contact to the target. It doesn't matter, anyway. At least now I know how it works. Just because you know how it works doesn't mean you will know it to deal with it. Naruto said. Sasuke shrugged. That was your attack, and should we see which is faster? The Uchiha said as he prepared a bow and arrow, ready to shoot straight at Naruto. Naruto dispersed his sword and shook his head. He was not going to have the joy of avoiding Sasuke's arrows from the Susanoo. This is enough for the day, he said. We have got visitors, the blonde Uzumaki added calmly, without looking at anywhere to suggest he was seeing the visitors he was talking about. Sasuke deactivated his Mangekyo before responding. Well, we are in Kiri's territory. The Uchiha said. The visitors are actually us. They were surrounded by a horde of shinobi, but it was to be expected because they had been making some noise in the village's territory. It was only logical that they take measures to handle the situation of the uninvited guests who had chosen to have a sparring session in their backyard. Sasuke didn't feel the need to glare at anyone over this kind of welcome. You're being perceptive, Naruto said. It is a bit freaky since it is being done by you, the blonde Uzumaki said calmly before turning his attention to the Kirigakure shinobi. Ao stepped out and landed at a safe distance, but close enough for the two Konoha shinobi to hear him without the need to shout. He could tell they were the Leaf shinobi by their headbands, and not to mention the other one was an Uchiha. The Sharingan was paired with the Hidden Leaf and no other village. What are Konoha shinobi doing here? The man demanded in a firm tone. As it stands, Kiri has no relations with the Hidden Leaf. They would have had something with them, but since the Sandaime Hokage refused to help them in their civil war, they hadn't tried anything and have so far been focused on rebuilding their village and making friends with new villages, but not anyone in the 5 great nations. Some of those villages thought that Kiri was D and now the weakest because of its recent B history. The village had been truly blessed with many bloodlines, so much more than Konoha had been. There was no other village that had more bloodlines than the Mist, but things happened and they were in this kind of position. Naruto looked away from Ao. He stared into the sky. The fact that we have put away our weapons and are not leaking any intent should be an indicator we do not mean any harm. There is no need for such a tone with us. Just because you have put away your weapons doesn't mean that you don't mean to fight. It could be a ploy to get us to drop our guard. Ao responded calmly. I have lived in this world long enough to know that shinobi are not the most trusted people. It's never wrong to be safe. You see, Sasuke, this is the kind of world we live in. You cannot just trust what you see and not just everyone, because if you do so, you will regret it one day. This is a massive lesson we must all learn. If you trust easily, you are naive. But this is just the world we live in, so we must know its rules and apply them. Naruto said to the Uchiha. He then turned to Ao once more and addressed the man. My earlier response was just to provoke that kind of a response from you, the blonde said. Ao glared. It wasn't funny. Who was this brat anyway? Both him and the Uchiha were powerful, he had been able to tell from watching them fight. My name is Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto started pointing towards Sasuke, is Uchiha Sasuke. As you can tell from our headbands, we are shinobi from the Hidden Leaf. We come in peace and I also have a message from the Godime Hokage. We were not aware that Hidden Leaf messengers were coming. Ao said. We don't know anything about it. Our visit to this land was personal. I have heard some good stories about this village, and that it is very peaceful. I thought it would be a good place to rest for a while. The Godime then gave me her message to deliver to the Mizukage when she was informed that we were coming to this village. Naruto said, taking out the letter from Tsunade. Ao didn't go towards the blonde, he remained standing in the same spot before asking. You can deliver that message to the Mizukage yourself, but be warned, if you try anything stupid, another letter will be sent to the Godime Hokage without you. Naruto shook his head but refrained from saying anything. He could play the part. Besides, he was here to make friends, not enemies. It would no good if he insulted the man. If we were planning on doing something, we wouldn't have allowed ourselves to be seen so lightly. Sasuke said as he walked towards Naruto. And if we want to do something to the Mizukage, we'd start with you first, and in the next minute, we'd be landing atop of her tower. AK intent was quickly directed towards them. There is no need for that, Sasuke, Naruto said with a wave of his right hand. Maybe you are willing to bend, but I cannot allow him to threaten us like that, especially since we have said that we have a message from our cage. Sasuke took the letter Naruto had on his hand before throwing it towards Ao. This was your proof, but you chose to ignore it in favor of spitting your toothless threats. Now, hurry up and lead us to your Mizukage. We have been traveling by sea for a long time and this place is damn cold. Sasuke said in a firm tone. Naruto said nothing, he just looked amused. As he said, Sasuke will always be Sasuke. Mizukage office. Mei looked up at the two Konoha shinobi walking into her office led by Ao. She had already received the report about Konoha shinobi sparring just outside of her village. She was a nice person, so she didn't order her men to bring them to her by force. But because they were Leaf shinobi and she was a kind person, she had decided that that would only be done if they refused to cooperate. Since they were here in peace, she assumed they had cooperated. She didn't say anything to them as she took the letter from the Godime Hokage from Ao. She looked at it for a moment before turning her focus on the two fine young men. Just because you are fine young men, I won't have you taken away into the interrogation cells. Mei started calmly. Your cage would have to forgive me, but you can never be too careful in the shinobi world. Sasuke wanted to snort at the first words, but he held himself from doing so. He would not have permitted something like that to happen. Even if he had fought back, it wouldn't have caused a war between Kiri and Konoha to occur. Kiri could not afford to go to war and Naruto would pull all the strings possible to ensure that nothing of such happens. Mei noted the look on Sasuke's face. Do you have something to say? She asked with a pleasant smile. No, Sasuke responded calmly. I thought as much, Mei said before turning to Naruto. Since he walked into the office, his facial expression has not changed, not even the slightest, not even a twitch. He was just observing what was happening around. It was interesting because that mask on his face didn't spell to her as if he was that kind of a person. There was something different from him and the Uchiha. So, what possessed both of you to work out just outside of my village? Mei asked in a serious tone. The sea was rather cold and we wanted to keep our bee warm. You should know that the temperatures are very different in the fire country. But of course, warming up wasn't the only idea. Naruto finally spoke. I just thought it was best to move our bee after the long journey through the sea. Mei stared at the blonde for a long minute, searching for something in his eyes, but he gave away nothing. She didn't have to look back at Sasuke to tell that between the two, the blonde was the one who was in charge. Their expressions spoke of different things, and just by looking at him, she could tell that they were capable young men. The Mizukage smiled and held out her right hand. Mei Terumi, Godime Mizukage. She introduced herself. Please sit down, Ao, you can leave. The man nodded before walking out of the office. Uzumaki Naruto, Jonin of Konohagakure. Naruto introduced himself to the Mizukage in a pleasant tone. A small smile graced his lips as he added. A pleasure to meet you, Mizukage-sama. The pleasure is all mine, it's not every day that I get to meet such interesting young men. The Mizukage responded with a smile of her own before turning to Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke, Jonin like him. Sasuke said. Mei nodded. Is this letter, she said holding out the letter she got from Ao, the only reason you two came here? Depending on your answer, I will either tell you to stay until you recover or to go back to Konoha and tell the Godime that I have received her message. No, there are other personal reasons for coming here. Naruto responded in a calm tone. Mei tilted her head to the side, curious about what the blonde meant by personal, but she didn't ask. She looked down at the letter before opening it. She read through the single passage written in the letter and then eyed Naruto with a calculative look on her face. Kirigakure has a lot to offer. There are a few places I can recommend if you're looking for pleasure, the Mizukage said. Naruto turned to Sasuke. Aren't you going to ask? The blonde said to the Uchiha, but it was done on purpose. Sasuke glared at the blonde. I'm not here for that. He said in a hardened tone, and since when have you been concerned about pleasure? Naruto shook his head. You're telling the Mizukage our secrets, he said. But I should have known you'd respond like that, the blonde said, turning to Mei. If you can make time to talk to me, I would appreciate it, Mizukage-sama. To be honest, aside from other things, I came here because I wanted to speak to you. How long do you intend to stay? A couple of days, give or take, Naruto said. Tomorrow afternoon. For now, you should go around to see the village and we will talk then, the Mizukage said. I will be at your aid if you need anything. For now, I have a lot of work to do. They were being dismissed, just like that. Naruto smiled. Maybe he would get along just fine with this woman. Konoha. Tsunade frowned as she stared at the message from Suna again. She had received it about an hour ago and had acted immediately, but she was still looking at it because it represented a major shift in how things would move on from this day onward. It was a major problem that would not just need Konoha to handle but also other villages, but who was going to help her in this quest? The Akatsuki had attacked Sunagakure and managed to take Gaara away from the village. This only meant that they were now moving towards their agenda. They were surely going to act again. This was just the start. To think that just two of them could get into the hidden village and take away the leader, a kage for that matter. Gaara might be young, but he was still a kage and a Jinchuriki of the one-tailed beast. The slug princess looked up as Shikaku walked into the office. Is there something wrong, Hokage-sama? The Nara asked before he even sat down. He could assume that something was indeed wrong. It wasn't often that Tsunade summoned his presence with as much firmness as she had on this occasion. It was safe to say something major had happened for her to call him in such a manner. Well, he was here to serve, so he had no complaints whatsoever. Tsunade folded the message from Suna and leaned back against her chair. Her eyes didn't stray away from the Nara clan head as he settled down in front of her desk. The Akatsuki have started moving. They attacked Suna and managed to get Gaara. That is unsettling, Shikaku said. But now we can say it without any doubt that the organization is after the Bayou. All Jinchuriki will be targeted and we can use Suna's case as means to prove that the threat we are talking about is real. It was hard convincing other villages of the threat the Akatsuki posed when you had no tangible proof that the organization was as dangerous as you said it was. Other villages had not been so keen to join in the party, thinking that they could handle a bunch of criminals, and no one really wanted to believe that the organization was really after the Jinchuriki. Of course, this didn't mean that the other villages would heed the warning, but at least they could move with a clear conscience knowing that they had warned the villages about the threat. They would take steps to correct the problem. Shikaku was sure that Tsunade would not just wait for the organization to make another attack before going after them. They would take the attack to them. They had to if they were going to stop them from achieving whatever they were planning to achieve through gathering the Bijuas. I have sent a team led by Kakashi to handle the situation. The success depends on them, but I picked the strongest team I could. Suna is our ally and Gaara has been honest in his dealings with us. If possible, I want to save him, but also stop the Akatsuki from doing whatever they want to do, the Godime said in a firm tone. Shikaku nodded in understanding. If things have happened in this way, it means we didn't know about it, the Nara said. If they had known beforehand, they would have warned Gaara and even sent of their men to help guard the village. But they didn't know, neither did Suna know about it, because if it had, it would have told them about it since they have been cooperating with regards to the Akatsuki. There was no warning, Tsunade said. I'm surprised that Naruto didn't do anything against the threat though. It would certainly be naive of me to think that Naruto had nothing to do with Gaara's ascension. Considering that he speaks highly of him, I thought that Naruto would take steps against it. Shikaku took a thoughtful look for a couple of seconds before responding. Perhaps, the Nara said. It is also unfortunate that neither he nor Sasuke are present in the village. Whilst we don't know the extent of their abilities, we know that they are the best in their generation. Granted, Naruto said he and Sasuke would have no problem fighting the members of the Akatsuki even though they are S-ranked shinobis. It is safe to say that they would have been useful in such a mission. Tsunade nodded. I won't disagree with that, but we must avoid trying to depend on them. We must also allow the others to grow and give them opportunities to prove themselves. My relationship with Naruto is improving, but there is no telling what he will do next if things turn upside down. Shikaku wanted to tell the Godime that it was predictable as it would be something that she would not like. He didn't tell her that, he kept his thoughts to himself. She was the Godime Hokage, it was better to allow her to work on her own devices and advice when asked, it was less troublesome that way. Let us hope that we are able to handle the Akatsuki issue quickly before they make more movements. Shikaku said. He doubted it would be as simple as saying it though. A group of S-rank shinobi that was something fearsome and worrisome compromised the organization. I called you here because we need to devise a strategy on how we are going to handle them. I have been trying to get hold of Jiraiya but for now, there has been no success. Since he left the village, I haven't heard anything from him. I think with what has happened to Suna, he will think of coming back once he learns of it. The Godime said. I will send another message to both Kumo and Iwa. Kasagaka will also get one since they too possess a Jinchuriki. Senju compound. Main house. Kushina sighed as she settled down on the table within the kitchen. There was a lot of work to be done in this compound. They were planning to move in soon, but they had to make it a little warmer just like their house. She was trying to make it look like their house, but nothing could be the same. Everything was different here, it could never be the same as their house. The redhead Uzumaki opened her eyes as Mikoto walked into the kitchen. She raised an eyebrow at seeing the woman. She wasn't surprised that the woman was here, they were friends after all. What was surprising was that she had made it here all alone. As far as she was concerned, the woman wasn't familiar with the compound, especially with the changes Naruto was making in preparation for their relocation. I thought everything was done. Mikoto said as she settled down across the table. I want everything to be perfect. Kushina said. But it is really done. We just need to set up barriers around the compound and this house once Naruto has time. We won't move until Naruto is satisfied with the security. Mikoto smiled. The blonde was adamant when it came to security and he did not compromise. He could compromise about many things but not when it came to security. Protection was everything, it was life. Without being secure, the blonde would certainly lose his mind. But when he was secure, he could rest easily, but wasn't it the same for everyone? Maybe Naruto was a bit excessive in his feelings for security. Well, he was Naruto. She would question the motives if things didn't go the Naruto way. Perhaps I will hire you to do some barriers for my compound as well. It's a bit problematic when someone can come in and go when they feel like it. Mikoto said with a smile. However, if she had Kushina do that, wouldn't it be a problem for her and Naruto? Sasuke would surely want to know everything and with how the barriers operated so that he could know what was happening in the clan grounds. If so, Naruto wouldn't be able to sneak in and out at night. Her son would also know that she has a tendency of leaving in the middle of night for somewhere he doesn't know. If he became aware of that, he would certainly ask many questions and perhaps even follow her to know where she went at night. That would be a serious problem. It was fine doing the barrier, she just had to find a way around it, and who said Sasuke has to know about it, now? She could keep it from him and inform him when the time is right, like when he is about to become clan head. For now, he was still growing up, he didn't need to know everything. Mikoto frowned at that thought. With what she was feeling, Sasuke would have to know soon. So did Kushina. It wasn't the plan, it couldn't be helped. You should. Kushina said. How have you been though? We haven't had time together in the past weeks. I'm always there and you have your clan to worry about. Kushina didn't believe that was the reason they had not been getting together much more regularly though. There was something else, she just couldn't place a finger on it. A lot has been happening in the past weeks, Mikoto said. She wasn't going to tell the woman that it was a little difficult facing her when she knew she's sleeping with her son. It wasn't just that only, but Kushina's reaction to the knowledge of it. She just didn't want to let slip of anything. She was still thinking of how she was going to go about it if the woman found out. At the moment, she could not give Kushina a satisfying reason that would calm her down. The woman was very protective of Naruto against some things. But I have been well. You seem fine yourself, Mikoto added after a few moments. Yugao not with you today. With Naruto away, I thought she'd be behind you like your shadow. Kushina smiled, a little amused. That is something of the past. It reminds me of Naruto. She said. These days he can go around without thinking of returning back to his mother in blinding speed. I'm happy that he is growing. Growth is important, Mikoto said with a nod. I think he is able to leave now because he knows you're safe in the village. Back then, there was always someone who wanted to try something, so these days, it is a lot better since they no longer hate you. Kushina nodded. Things have changed, huh? Well, I have always believed that they would change. I guess I must also thank the Sandaime Hokage. It was his scheming that led to Naruto's actions during the invasion, the Uzumaki said. I'm happy with the change on my son. She paused and gave Mikoto a strange look. Does it make me a bad person that I know about how my son behaves and yet I don't go to him and condemn it? I don't let what he does bother me, I have accepted it as what my son is. It doesn't worry me anymore as it used it when I used to try all my best to just ignore that part of him. Mikoto smiled. It makes you a loving mother, Kushina, the Uchiha said. You know Naruto, you know that your son will always do some things, but there are some barriers he will not cross because he is your son and you're still alive. As it stands, you're his mental check. She tilted her head to the side. I don't suppose you know why he went to Kiri, do you? He isn't really forthcoming in this kind of things. I didn't think you were interested. Kushina said with a raised brow. But I guess since it involves your son, you have to. And on this occasion, he left with him, Kushina stated in a calm tone. I don't bother myself with the details and he doesn't bother me with them. Nevertheless, he said the main objective was to make the Mizukage a friend of his and if possible a friend of Konoha. So, that was what he meant by making things personal with the Mizukage. Mikoto grew curious. She was a lot more interested in what type of a person the woman was. Her character would determine the kind of relationship Naruto would have with her. If she was likable and someone he could consider a human. If that was the case, it would scare her. I see. Mikoto said in thought. He is making friends, huh? Kushina smiled. Not the kind of friends you'd want for your child, but friends nonetheless, the Uzumaki said. Speaking of friends, Naruto is going to make Yugao a special friend. She knew it was going to end up like that. Naruto didn't just jump into bed and then say no, he had made a mistake. No, he would think about marrying Yugao. Perhaps not out of love, but because he wants to keep her in the family and he would do his best to keep her happy because he does need her. It didn't please her having those thoughts, but it was the reality that she had to face and live with. A special friend? Mikoto asked, surprised. How sure are you? Not a doubt, Kushina said with a smile. Yugao is mature and can keep up with Naruto. I have known her and I think things will work well. We are already a family, and I will be happy to start thinking about having grandchildren. I still think Naruto is a little too young for that. She paused and nodded to herself. He is still young. You're going to have a grandchild soon, Mikoto thought, but she didn't allow her thoughts to show. You seem happy about this, Mikoto said with a smile, a rather thin smile. Naruto never mentioned this to me when we last spoke. How long have you known about this? I caught them in the act. I think something has been happening for a while now. Kushina said in a thoughtful tone. How is your son doing? Everything that is Sasuke, Mikoto said standing up. She was a little disappointed that Kushina had decided to see it short about Yugao, but she could not push things. She didn't want to raise any questions that would put her in a difficult position. If Naruto was hiding this thing with Yugao, then it was something not done to keep their relationship hidden, and with the way that woman looked at her, it was safe to say that she knew about them. For a moment, Mikoto thought of putting the issue aside as Naruto doing it just to keep the woman quiet about their relationship, but the glaring fact that he kept it a secret made it difficult for her to accept the reasoning. You leaving already? Mikoto smiled. I was just here to check on you. I will make some time for us to be together and talk a bit more. For now, I must head back to the compound. Kirigakure. Mei was sitting inside her office with lunch prepared atop of her desk. She could not go out because there was a lot of work that needed to be done. It was tough being Mizukage, but this was something that she had to take on for the sake of her village. If she didn't work the extra hours and pushed herself to her limits, Kiri would not continue on the path it has been on since the civil war ended a couple of years ago. Naruto was sitting across her, eating quietly. The blonde wasn't saying much to her, and he wasn't giving her any glances. He may be young, but he was still a male, and that came with the urges. Well, she could appreciate a well-mannered young man. He had a way about things, didn't he? Just from his clothing, To how he walked, he almost treated himself as if he was someone from an old noble family, if those still existed. Perhaps that only said he was of class. I thought you'd be with Sasuke when you came here, Mei said, eyeing the blonde curiously. Naruto looked up from his plate and stared at the Mizukage for a few moments. This kind of game he played when he was enjoying a game of shogi. How he missed that mental game. It was always interesting with the Sandaime because they played a high-stakes game. With Shikamaru it was always about the Nara trying to find out more about him because most of the time he played the game, it paralleled how he made decisions in real life. Do you play shogi, Mizukage-sama? The blonde asked instead of answering the questions. Or perhaps even cards. Cards are especially a good exercise learning how to keep a poker face and reading facial expression from people. Mei was slightly surprised by the question, but she didn't show it in her expression. She just responded in a calm tone, "No, I have never played. I have never even gotten the chance to play any because of my work. Before I became Mizukage, I was leading the rebels against AB Yagura who threatened to destroy this village." Naruto nodded. Kiri was once famous for its bloodlines, and not to mention the Seven Swordsmen. The blonde said, "I came across one of them whilst I was a genin, by the way. Zabuza was his name, and he had a young bloodline holder with him. I believe from the Yukimaru clan. Unfortunately, they all die." The blonde paused to allow the Mizukage time to absorb the words. "I did manage to get the sword from Zabuza though. Humans have this thing of trying to reclaim past glories. It isn't necessarily a bad thing, it just shows you how much we cling on to our past." Mei stared at the blonde for a long minute before responding. He was an interesting person, that was for sure, and he wasn't talking just nonsense. "And I suppose you brought it with you as a sign of what?" Naruto shook his head. "I brought it here because I thought it was a waste to leave in beside the bones of AD man," the blonde said with mild indifference before going back to her earlier question. "Sasuke is busy observing the village. I sometimes treat him like a child and exclude him from certain conversation, which isn't fair, but I just can't help myself. Does he know you treat him like that?" "Of course, he isn't stupid," Naruto said. "He was hailed as genius in our academy class." "And you?" Naruto shook his head. "I'm not a genius. In the academy, I was never interested in becoming the best. I saw the academy as a waste of time because it taught me nothing I didn't already know." The blonde said, "What I am is a dedicated and passionate person, to my course." Mei nodded. She wasn't going to be the judge and wasn't going to pass any thoughts. She didn't know the blonde, but she hoped to know him. He was an interesting person, and the letter she had received from Tsunade had made her even more curious about him. "What did you want to talk about?" Naruto straightened up slightly and looked straight at the Godime Mizukage. "I'm curious about what the Godime said to you in the letter. You only spent a couple of seconds on it, so I assume there were only a handful of words within it." Mei tilted her head to the side. "What if I only read the first words that said, 'Don't read in Naruto's presence,' and then closed it?" Naruto smiled. "That is a compelling argument," the blonde said. "And it would certainly make you curious, wouldn't it?" Mei nodded. "Yes, I'm already curious. Your conduct since you appeared before me has been curious. Of course, it could be a play. You can never trust anything you see in this world. We are taught to be deceitful when we are still young, and of course, when you trust someone you lose that a bit. Naturally, when people betray you, it becomes literal. A rather practical world we live in, huh?" Naruto said. "But it is a different story when it comes to civilian life. They don't live in the same world as we do. Our rules are different to theirs." He paused. "I guess you're not going to answer my question. Is it okay if I simply call you Mei-san?" "Mei is just fine." "Mei, it is then," Naruto said. "I don't make a lot of friends in my life, but when I do, the people have to possess certain qualities that make them human. Most people are just living, but their actions don't make them human. I dislike such people. I have heard that you're a woman of strong morals and want nothing but peace for your people. I guess what you have seen in this land so far makes that desire real and strong. I cannot say I have seen as much as you have, but I have seen a couple of things. What I have seen makes me wish for the world to have a bit of order and justice, if I can use the word. Cages are disconnected from each other, everyone is minding their own business, leaving gaps in the middle. These gaps give chances for the corrupt seeds to have breathing spaces. When you afford that space, the seeds will grow and destabilize things, pulling those around it. My view is that for such seeds to be removed, there must be a connection in the elemental nations. The type of connection that promotes stability based on cooperation rather than forces of power, because the moment those are removed, we lose that stability. A network of communication needs to be established for the nations to connect. Mei was silent for about a minute. Why do you desire something like that? Can you keep a secret? Naruto asked with a smile. Mei nodded. It is because if this world goes into war, a darker side of me will break out with just one purpose. Mei narrowed her eyes. She could tell that the blonde didn't want the balance for very noble reasons. There was no kindness and love for the world that made him desire to have balance, it was all for himself. There was no power hunger in his eyes that made her fear that he just wanted to manipulate the world to form an image of his liking. He was a different person from her, from everyone she has met. Even so, she could say that the desire to bring stability that would ensure that there are no wars was real. It was so real that it burnt even her desires. At the same time, the desire revealed something she didn't like: the darkness in him. If anything, Mei could say the blonde didn't want to turn evil, he wanted to remain pure, but if the world forced him, he would turn to the other side. What did this mean to his personality, his character? It was all a bit complex and curious. The Mizukage wanted to know more. She wanted to know what made him like that. How he was able to control that darkness in him. What purpose? Mei asked, but she knew the answer to the question. With what I have said, you should have an answer. Naruto said calmly. Mei nodded and breathed in before leaning against her chair. Do you resent war that much? Naruto shook his head lightly. This might be contradictory, but I have nothing against a war itself. The reasons behind the war are what I dislike. Mostly it is some petty reasons that don't even matter and could have been handled quickly without needless be. Over the use of weapons to solve matters, I prefer opening my mouth and using my head. But of course, there are those situations you're forced to lift your hands. Not all the reasons, but he was by no means lying to the Mizukage. A war would certainly give him an excuse to reduce the population of this world to make it a lot more manageable. Yes, he would allow the Kyuubi to get loose and would use every means necessary to reduce the other great nations to form a great nations. He could do that, but he understood what something like that would paint over his shoulders. He would become a demon and people would spit at the mention of his name. He would have enemies left and right and people would not stop at anything to make him suffer. Naturally, that led back to his mother. She would be in constant danger from people. She would be forced to remain within the hidden leaf or any place they have chosen to live with things with Konoha turned to the left. That was something he didn't want for his mother. No, Naruto wanted her to be free and happy just as she wished for him. For a young man, you surely are interesting. The Mizukage said. I find myself drawn to learning more about you, but I can't take myself that far. I'm still a cage of this village and comes with responsibilities. I wish not to do something reckless that will endanger this village. Nevertheless, what you want here isn't anything reckless, but cooperation, a joining of the dots. The redhead smiled. You prefer to talk, huh? I won't be manipulated into doing anything I don't want. What gives you that impression that I am after that? Naruto asked quietly. If my purpose had been that, I would have come to you in a different way. I've to be like this because I know that some relationships are kept strong by the truth and a bond. That may be true, but people who prefer smooth talking into things are often manipulative snakes who wear masks to fool their prey, Mei said in a hardened tone. She then sighed. This thing could work for me, but I will discuss it with your Godime Hokage. You started it, but I will end it with your leader. She can come here anytime she pleases. Of course, if you like you can come with her. Naruto was silent for about a minute. That is fine with me. The blonde Uzumaki said. I do hope that when we do come back here, we will have some fruitful conversation. I'm still going to be here for 2 days at least. I have found this environment to be a bit refreshing. Mei smiled. Please enjoy your stay, but I do hope to have one more conversation before you leave. Konoha. Yugao found herself pressed against a wall with a very stern-faced Mikoto lording over her. She had been walking peacefully within the streets of the Hidden Leaf. She had been looking for some furniture for the Senju compound for Kushina. Mikoto had come out of nowhere and requested to speak to her, without even waiting for her response. The Uchiha had dragged her away into an alley. The former Anbu had no doubt that it had something to do with Naruto. Kushina must have told her about it. This wasn't anything less than what she had anticipated. The woman was possessive of Naruto and she had been waiting for him to grow up so that she could make him a man, her own personal man that she apparently didn't want to share with anyone. Yugao smiled at the woman. Mikoto-san. She started calmly. This is a lovely surprise. Mikoto narrowed her eyes thinly. What are you playing at, Yugao? I know you are aware about Naruto and me. You have known for quite some time now, but I have always thought that Naruto had it covered. Is this something to do with him getting a girl to hide my relationship with him? That was something that they had discussed, but she had made it clear that she would have to approve the person first. Naruto didn't have to go behind her with it. It didn't even have to include his mother, because if it did, it was something that was going to be serious. She didn't even want Yugao of all people. Naruto could not simply discard her when she was of no value anymore. This woman was an important piece to the Uzumaki, and given her relationship with Kushina, Naruto would not do anything to endanger that relationship, and that gave her some fears. I'm not playing at anything. Yugao responded with a slight shake of her head. Do you really think that Naruto would do that to me? She was his trusted mother's protector. If he did anything bad to her, he would have to be worried about his mother all over again and think of a new way to protect her. He would not even afford himself the time to leave the village for longer periods, as he would be afraid for his mother's safety. He was okay now because if something happens, she would do something or call him back if she was failing. Mikoto stepped away from Yugao and calmed herself. It appears this thing between you and him is true, but I wonder why Naruto is keeping it a secret from me. He didn't mention anything when we last spoke. The Uchiha said to herself more than to Yugao. How serious are you? Yugao tilted her head to the side as she adopted a thoughtful look on her face. Well, his mother said that unless he thinks of marrying me, he can't start a relationship. Mikoto frowned. If that happened, she was going to be the side woman. She would be fornicating with the blonde when she was the one who made him a man before this woman came along. It really left a bitter taste in Mikoto's mouth. She could not think of getting married to Naruto. Kushina would not allow it, and it would not be good for her clan. But if Naruto married Yugao, there was a chance that he would discard her, just like that. Well, given recent developments in her body, she really didn't to worry. She just frowned at the thought of using it to keep Naruto by her side. She focused on Yugao once more. So you're saying that you are not in relationship with him and that there is a chance he might not even start it? Well, that is at least good news. She managed to smile at that. Maybe if she told him, he would only focus on her. I wouldn't put my hope in something like that. Yugao said. You should know better. Naruto doesn't make moves on impulses. If he is going to do something, he will do it, and I'm not just going to allow him to walk away after everything. What is that supposed to mean? I'm interested, Yugao said, but she didn't add Naruto's name. Unlike you, I don't have to hide my relationship with him. I can give him a family that his mother desires for him. Yugao knew she was stepping out of line, but she felt she had to say it because she didn't see a future in Mikoto's relationship with Naruto. They were not going to go anywhere, and it would not be good for Naruto. He needed someone who could support him and turn him into a path that would bring him happiness. Wasn't it just going to end between the sheets if he continued with Mikoto? Besides that, it was best they ended it before Kushina found out about it. She was okay with her, but if she realized that Mikoto was also involved, there would be trouble, and it would not just be with Mikoto but with Naruto as well. Yugao wasn't going to tell the woman to end things with Naruto. No, that was something she had to think for herself. Mikoto smiled, a bitter smile that made Yugao regret what she had said. I only wanted to confirm. Have a good day, Yugao. Maybe she shouldn't have said all that. What was she going to about this? And how was she even going to interact with the woman the next time they meet? Mikoto, Yugao called. When the Uchiha stopped, she spoke again. I'm sorry. I should not have said that. Mikoto shook her head. You are correct. I won't get married to Naruto because his mother will not allow. But my relationship with him won't remain a secret for too long. And I can give him a family. Yugao narrowed her eyes. What is that supposed to mean? Mikoto smiled. I'm just stating the reality. Later that day. I thought you were going to take your sweet time to get back. Tsunade said the moment Jiraiya appeared in her voice in his usual fashion. There were matters that needed to be dealt with and the Sannin was needed. She did depend on his intel and his counsel in other matters regarding the village's security. With the Akatsuki out in the loose, it was important that they deal with it because if they were not handled, eventually they were going to come knocking at the Leaf's doors looking for Naruto so they can take the Kyuubi away from him. Tsunade was not going to suggest that they throw away Naruto just to avoid that danger. A choice like that would be wrong and a colossal blunder that she would live to regret. The Akatsuki would surely do something dangerous once they have captured all Jinchurikis and it would threaten the balance of the elemental nations and drive them towards the brink of another war or something b. It would not be just that only, but Naruto would be looking at them with a vengeful eye. Granted what she knew about him, making an enemy out of him would not be the wise decision. It wasn't to say she would not be able to handle him, but it would come at a cost. Tsunade would rather avoid such a situation at all costs. And miss your sweet face. Jiraiya responded with a grin. You know I can't away from you for too long, Haim. Tsunade shook her head. Jiraiya's love for her was something that she always ignored. She has known for a long time, but nothing was going to come out of it. The Toad Sage was old enough to know that, yet he has continued to love her. Did it really have to come to that point or did she just not want to be involved with anyone? The Slug Princess shook her head. This was something she didn't need to think about. Be serious, pervert, the Godime snapped sternly. You should know already that the Akatsuki has begun to move and managed to get the One-Tails. Jiraiya lost his grin and adopted a more serious mask on his face. I'm aware of that. We should step up in our efforts to contact other cages. I will head to Iwagakure. I don't think it will be safe for someone like Naruto to go to that village. There are bound to be frictions and you don't want him opening his mouth there. Since he knows that they are likely to hold some resentment towards him, he won't hold back. It will be better to send him to Kumogakure. The Raikage can be dismissive but I let us hope that Naruto can get to him and make him listen. If not, I hope he has better security to protect his Jinchuriki. At the same time, we cannot allow Naruto to move freely because if they see a chance, they will take it. Tsunade nodded. Naruto isn't in the village at the moment. He went to Kiri but he is with Sasuke, I'm sure the two of them can manage. I will summon Sai and get him to send a message to Naruto about his new mission. She paused. When will you depart? Early morning. Jiraiya said. I need to rest a bit in a hot spring before going in another journey. You mean you have to peep on the women of Konoha first? Tsunade corrected the Sannin with mild anger in her tone. 2 days later, Naruto and Sasuke were hopping on trees as they traveled towards Konoha when the former suddenly came to a halt. The Uzumaki held out his right hand and a bird landed on it. Naruto took out the small scroll on it and opened it. His eyes flashed through its contents for about a minute before nodding his head. Seeing that there was no message for replay, the bird burst into black ink. What was that all about? Sasuke demanded from Naruto. A change of plans. The Akatsuki attacked Sunagakure and have managed to get their hands on the first Beiyu. I have to go to Kumogakure and warn the Raikage about it. It is likely that they will go after Kumo's Jinchuriki next. Naruto responded calmly. You can return to Konoha. I will deal with this alone. The message had said that Tsunade wanted him to go with Sasuke for safe measures, but Naruto wasn't going to follow that suggestion. He didn't need Sasuke to have his back to know that he was safe. Sure, the Uchiha was strong, but he could do without him. Besides, this week alone with the raven-haired was enough. He did not need to spend more days with him, lest he end up smacking him straight in the face with the back of his left hand. You don't sound surprised that they attacked and managed to take Gaara. Sasuke said calmly. Why would he be surprised? He had known that they were going to attack the Jinchuriki. He needed to know what they wanted to do with the Bijuas and he could not know without Gaara's sacrifice. As long as the Kazekage was still alive, nothing else was going to be a problem. The Beiyu he had housed wasn't powerful enough to cause him worry. Gaara is still alive, there shouldn't be a problem. Naruto said a bit dismissively. I will see you back at Konoha. I'm coming with, Sasuke said, jumping onto the same tree branch as Naruto. No, you're not, Naruto responded in a firm tone. I'm going with you whether you like it or not. Naruto faced Sasuke with an expressionless mask on his face, and then spoke in a cold tone. Sasuke, it has become quite clear that your power is starting to get to your head. I have praised you for your growth, but you're still an arrogant child. Do not think that because you have the Mangekyo I cannot smack you into the ground. Don't misunderstand my tolerance as a sign of fear. I told your brother that I would K him if he crossed a line. Do you think I will fear you, a mere Uchiha brat that I trained? Sasuke glared. He didn't fear the cold tone Naruto was using. He didn't like it, though. They were of the same age and he was certain that the blonde could not do as he used to do when they were still young. He had become strong, he was confident, and there was no way to prove anything if Naruto didn't fight him seriously with the intent to break him. Maybe not, but I'd like to see you attempt that, the Uchiha said challengingly. In a single step, Naruto's right foot was moving into the air, rushing towards Sasuke's face with his left foot rooted to the tree branch for balance. The Uchiha saw the attack and crouched down in the blink of an eye. Sasuke leapt away from the tree branch, trying to create some distance between him and Naruto. When his feet were just inches away from landing on a tree branch, it was suddenly see-off, forcing Sasuke to crash down, but he quickly regained his composure to land on both his feet. Go back home, Sasuke. Sunagaku. Gaara was sitting behind his desk, carrying the heavy weight of the hidden sand on his shoulders. He had only returned from being captured by the Akatsuki. No, that was inaccurate, he was rescued rather. Although he had met with death and some intolerable pain when they were releasing Shukaku from him, he was still here, back to his beloved village as its cage. It had come with a sacrifice though, but he wasn't going to allow the sacrifice to go to waste. Are you not thinking too hard, Gaara? Temari asked in a calm tone, staring straight at her brother. He has been keeping things to his mind since he came back, and it was worrying her that he was perhaps thinking too deep. There was a lot that happened in his capture and that included meeting death. Still, she was there for him, his family was here for him, and Baki was here. They could help if there was something troubling him. Then again, her brother tended to keep things to himself. Gaara's eyes went towards his sister for a few moments before he stared into the empty space between them as he responded. How is Kankuro doing? The former Jinchuriki asked, opting against responding to Temari's question. He is fine. Sakura's antidote has worked, but he isn't 100% fine. He should be up and running in a couple of days. Temari responded. I must also leave for Konoha tomorrow. There are still things we must finalize in our diplomatic talks. Gaara nodded. He had to thank Konoha's efforts in their rescue. Although it was Chio who ended up saving his life, he could not take anything for granted. The leaf had sent its best to try to rescue him and his brother. He had been told that if not for Sakura, his brother might have died. He was happy with that and would express his gratitude to Tsunade when he does go to the leaf. You will express my gratitude to Konoha, Gaara said. Temari nodded. Anything to Naruto. Why he wasn't even on the rescue team. She was really questioning the motives of the blonde. It was true that he has been nothing but fair to them since they met, and he did help her in many ways than one, but since the invasion, he has been a bit indifferent towards them. He no longer tried and looked as if he was plotting something. He didn't even want to deal with her, but left Shikamaru to talk to her. Maybe she would question him about it when she does reach Konoha. She was always a guest in the Uzumaki house when she goes there anyway. Kushina would always welcome her because despite everything, the woman still treated her as her daughter, and Temari liked that. It was one of the reasons she loved going to the Hidden Leaf. He was not in Konoha when they received the message. From what Kakashi said, he went to Kiri along with Sasuke. The Godime Kazekage responded in a blank tone. But if you do find him, tell him that I want to speak with him. I think there is a lot that we must discuss. I will wait if he's not there. I also want to have a word with him. Temari said. We have been cautious in dealing with him, but I'm tired of it. Be careful with what you say, Temari. Gaara cautioned. The blonde shrugged. There is nothing to worry about. It isn't like Naruto is going to attack me right in front of his mother, and I think she will agree with some of the things I'd like to say to him. Gaara shook his head. Just don't take it too far. Temari waved her right hand dismissively before standing up. As she walked out of the office, Baki walked in. It was as if the man had been waiting for her to leave before he could come in. The Jonin didn't sit before he started talking. How are you doing without the one tail inside of you? Your control over sand, I mean. We have always assumed that it was an ability that was granted to you by the Bayou. It would be a massive loss if Gaara has lost the ability. That was his only power, and without it, he would become just a normal person. Many would question his rule. Certainly, if he could no longer command the sand, he would not be powerful enough to be considered a kage. Power wasn't what has made Gaara lead this village smoothly up to so far, nevertheless. So perhaps something could be worked out. I have not lost my ability, Gaara said calmly. It is strange, but that isn't something we can focus on at the moment. The Akatsuki didn't do any damage to the village, so we cannot worry about any of that. That was thanks to you for protecting the village, Baki said in a firm tone. I'm sure the villagers are aware of it by now. Gaara merely nodded. He hadn't done it for praise or for the villagers to love him more. He had done what he did because he was the leader of the Sand Village, and when he took the mantle of Kazekage, he had sworn to protect this village and its people even at the cost of his own life. Is there anything that I must know? We must resume normal business. For now the Akatsuki won't be coming to us, but will be going after other villages with Jinchurikis. We don't know what will happen afterwards, but it would be helpful we tried to find out more about their motives. Did you receive anything from Naruto? The man shook his head. It would be best if we leave him out of our business. He is a leaf shinobi and we cannot depend on him on anything. We will be K ourselves if we do so. I'm not saying you must not ask for his help when it is needed, but I am saying that we must not become dependent on him, or else we run the risk of seeing him controlling things in this village. We have not depended on Naruto, Baki, Gaara said. We have been doing things on our own. True, it was by Naruto's hand that I ascended to the office, but I'm still loyal to this village and its people. We have resources and we will use them for this village. Naruto will be helpful in situations only he can help. Besides, he hasn't been saying with regards to the village anyway. But that doesn't mean he won't, Baki said. It won't come to that, Gaara said. Even if it does, do you think I will just roll over? I have a lot to thank Naruto and his mother, but this is still my village. I will not betray it. That is something that even Naruto can understand, his mother especially. Konoha, Uchiha compound. Mikoto wasn't expecting Sasuke to be back home so soon after Tsunade gave her the message that he was supposed to go with Naruto to Kumogakure on a mission. What even surprised her was that he didn't look particularly happy. The expression on his face gave it all away. Maybe she could spot it quickly because she was his mother. She had carried him for 9 months and had fed him when he was little. But the fact that he was back could mean that Naruto was also back. She needed to speak to the blonde about his thing with Yugao and their relationship. She simply could not allow things to slip through her fingers so easily. Life was something else, wasn't it? A few days ago she didn't have this fear everything was well. She was only worried about keeping the relationship secret, but now she had to worry about it ending. Naruto wouldn't do something like that to her, would he? After everything he has done, it would be rather heartless of him, but he was capable of doing it, wasn't he? Mikoto shook her head and focused on Sasuke. She had to focus on her son at the moment. Naruto wasn't going to disappear tomorrow, if he had returned to the village along with her son. You don't look well, Mikoto said. Sasuke sat down on a couch, just away from his mother before responding. I nearly had a fight with Naruto. If things had moved any different, they may have had a full-blown out battle that would have torn the ground apart and someone would have gotten hurt. Sasuke didn't think even if something like that had happened, it would have changed their relationship. Naruto more or less bullied him when they were younger and he still stayed close. These days, the blonde Uzumaki could not bully him as he used to, and that was the only difference between now and then. What did you do? Mikoto asked curiously. Sasuke glared at his mother heatedly. Why do you automatically assume that I'm the one at fault? The Uchiha demanded. Mikoto wanted to say that Naruto was less likely to say the wrong things that would piss either off to the point where they have to fight to resolve the differences, but she didn't want to wound her son's pride and so she waved her hands in a defensive manner. Let me rephrase that, she said with a smile. What did Naruto say to you to get you so mad you felt you needed to fight him? Sasuke's glare intensified for a second before he shook his head. He wasn't going to say that he had caused the problem, it was Naruto's fault. Naruto didn't want to go to Kumogakure with me, so I told him that I was going to go whether he liked it or not and that there was nothing he could do about that. Mikoto blinked. Sasuke had to know that Naruto didn't like being forced to do things, he did things when they were convenient for him at least. I doubt something like that could have caused things to get dangerous. Sasuke was silent for a few moments before responding. Recently, I have made a few demands and Naruto has been permitting it. That day, he called it tolerance, the Uchiha said with a frown. I felt a bit pissed off by it, still am. I want him to treat me like a partner, not a tool. Mikoto tilted her head to the side, giving Sasuke a strange look. You're going to have to start owing up to that. Have you considered why Naruto never lets you in on his plans? Sasuke shrugged. Because he thinks I'm a child. Mikoto shook her head. Even without asking, I can tell. I'm your mother, I should know you, and I can tell you that you don't think like him. You're not like him. And you always allow your emotions to get the best of you. I don't think that is something that can be solved quickly, but you can stand up, Sasuke. Sasuke frowned. How did things go in Kiri anyway? My end was fine, I can have no complaints. Sasuke said. I assume everything went well with Naruto and the Mizukage. They did have lunch and dinner at her house before we left. He didn't seem to have any complaints, though, the Uchiha said before tilting his head to the side. Is something wrong, mother? Mikoto blinked before shaking her head. No. All is well, Sasuke. Kumogakure. Naruto looked around the office of the Raikage. It was neat and around the walls, there was weightlifting equipment. Well, this was the Yondaime Raikage, a muscled man. He surely did train his body a lot. But that was given since the man was a taijutsu specialist. People like him needed to keep their being in top condition in order to be at their best when they fight a battle. The Uzumaki looked at the Raikage. The man was of a huge stature. It was certain that he knew how to pack a punch. Raikages have so been known for their speed and reliance on taijutsu. The stories of the Sandaime Raikage were the ones Naruto found to be truly remarkable. He was the man who is said to have faced off against the Eight Tails to a draw as neither could harm each other. Not only that, but he faced off against 10,000 enemy shinobi in a bid to allow his people to survive. That was something amazing, but of course, Naruto had no desire for such heroics. Well, unless it was for his mother. At the same time, he would have to make sure that he survives for his mother's sake. She would certainly be lost without her precious son. I looked at the blonde Uzumaki before speaking. If I'm not mistaken, you're Minato's son. Naruto nodded. In the flesh. He wasn't surprised about it. Konoha already knew about it since the Sandaime made a spectacle about it. If Konoha as a whole knew, then the other villagers were likely to know. This was the reason he didn't even want to go to Iwagakure. The village did hold resentment towards his father. It wasn't being presumptuous to think that hatred would be thrown at him as the man's son. It was how humans operated. I see, the man said in a thoughtful tone. Then, what does a Konoha shinobi want in my village? I came to deliver a warning about the Akatsuki. I'm sure you have heard of them. But I will say it anyway. They're a group of S-ranked missing nins who are hunting down Jinchuriki for their Bayu. Konoha does not know for what purpose, but we don't think it is any good. The blonde stated. They have already attacked Sunagakure and have taken its Bayu. We think that they will likely target your Jinchuriki next. The Yondaime Raikage scoffed. Then what do you want? Cooperation in dealing with them. Naruto said. I saw Tsunde's letter. The man said. Sunagakure has and will always be the weakest village out of the great nations, and I have heard that its kage is just a boy. You cannot tell me to be concerned if they manage to get to him. It doesn't prove to me that they are powerful. Besides, my Jinchurikis are powerful enough to defend themselves against a bunch of criminals. Thanks for the warning, but Kumo will handle them if they come to us. We don't need to cooperate with any other village to handle a handful of criminals on the loose. Is that what you believe, Raikage? If I didn't believe it, I wouldn't be saying it. I said in a dismissive tone. Be sure you're not thinking with your oversized muscles rather than your head, Raikage, because if not, you will lose this battle. Naruto said in a strong tone. For a second, the blonde thought of insulting the man, but he opted against it. And narrowed his eyes dangerously. If you apologize now and walk away, I will forget you ever said that. Naruto turned away from the man as he spoke. What a waste of time. I should have just gone back home than attempt this, the blonde Uzumaki said before disappearing via gusts of winds. Konoha, Naruto's house. It was night by the time Naruto returned home. He was surprised when he got back to find his mother sitting with Temari and Yugao sitting room. He was not expecting the sand blonde to be present at his house. Nevertheless, given what occurred to her brother, it was safe to say she had come to Konoha for some business. Still, he wasn't looking forward to speaking to her. "Oh, you're back," Kushina said to Naruto as he came up to them and settled down on the single couch. "For about a few minutes now," Yugao said. He first checked the barriers around the house to see if something was amiss. The former Anbu added. She had sensed him a couple of minutes well. She wasn't surprised really, it was something like Naruto. "I didn't take much time in Kumo," Naruto said to his mother, opting to ignore Yugao's comment. "How was your stay, mother?" "It was fine, just very busy," Kushina said. "You have a guest, aren't you going to greet her?" Naruto turned to face Temari. He hasn't really observed her since she has grown from being the girl who used to worry more about her role as the Kazekage only daughter and caring for her brothers. Perhaps those days he really considered things with her. Yes, her father had still been alive and he did think about the possibility to marrying her, as it was something that his mother had agreed to. Since the invasion by Sunagakure and the Sound, everything did change. To be honest, he had stopped caring for the Sand siblings. They were not at fault with what happened. Kankuro had known, but that was something else. His mother still cared for the Sand siblings as her children, that hasn't changed. It was not that she was naive, she just saw past what happened and did not fault them. He had his issues. Naruto shook his head slightly and smiled at the blonde sister of the Kazekage. "Temari," he said. "Naruto." Temari acknowledged. "Can I speak to you?" "Can it wait?" Naruto was quick to respond. "I only just returned from a week-long journey across the elemental nations. I'd like to relax a bit," and he wanted to sit with his mother a bit because a part of him had missed her. Most times when he went away, he felt the need to make up for that time he was away from her presence. "I have to leave early morning tomorrow. I was supposed to have left today, but I wanted to wait for you so that we could speak," Temari said. Quote, Naruto looked at Yugao for a moment. He wanted to speak with her, but that would have to wait, as he had to deal with Temari. He stood up. "Follow me," he said to the sister of the Kazekage. Temari slowly followed Naruto towards his study. The blonde waited for her to enter before showing her where to sit and then closed the door before he walked over to settle behind the desk. He looked at her calmly with a mask she could not define what it represented. "I can tell that you're coming to me with a different attitude before you even say anything. Well, I have always believed that you're a strong-willed person with a strong personality. I would certainly not have wasted my time with you back then if I believed that you were a weak-minded person," Naruto said before asking. "What do you want to talk to me about, Temari? Our marriage isn't going to happen, I'm certain of that now. I will speak to Tsunade to cancel the agreement, on your approval," Temari stated. "But that isn't what I wanted to talk to you about. We need to talk about your role in Sunagakure. I'm sure you know already about what happened to my brother, and now there are more challenges that he is facing." Naruto didn't admit to knowing anything. "What do you mean by my role in Suna? I'm a Konoha shinobi." "I didn't dispute that," Temari said firmly. "My brother says you had something to do with the former village's council and recommended to Baku that he be made Kazekage. I can guess for what reason. What I'm trying to say that if you're going to help my brother, help him, if not, don't pretend to be anything." Naruto tilted his head to the side with a raised eyebrow. "What are you talking about, Temari? I have not pretended to be anything and I never promised Gaara to offer my assistance in anything. He is the Kazekage, not me, I'm just a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf." Temari shook her head. "I'm not saying you promised anything, but your mother considers us as family, Gaara sees you as a friend. At one stage, the thought of being your wife had settled in my mind. Gaara says he wants to speak with you, please be honest with him. It would be helpful to us if we knew who we can turn to when things are difficult." "Who do you think I am, Temari?" "I don't know, I know you're someone even the village's leaders seem to fear. I'm very much involved in politics, so I know these things. Besides, I talked to Shikamaru, he seems to know you pretty well." Temari said. Naruto smiled. That is some way to ask for help, Temari. He said. But it is fine. Since I can't get rid of you because my mother likes you, I will be your shoulder when you have no one to turn to. He paused as a thought came to mind. Why don't you send a message to your brother and tell him that you will extend your stay here by a couple of hours? When you depart to Suna, I will go back with you so that I can talk to your brother. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.